that segues nicely into our next item. It's not a performance per se, but we will return to the dancing performance straight afterwards. But it segues quite nicely into what we want to talk about now. Daniel Firth is going to come and present the Sahaja, the school project, Balmoral School project. And it's quite nice that we've been able to see all the young children in our collective. And if there's anything more precious to us Sahaja, it's that the innocence of these children is preserved. And I think this is really the impetus for this school. This school has come about quite organically through the intense and sincere desire from primarily the children and then the parents also. So I'll give over to Dan to speak a little bit about the school.
Well, what can I say after that? We need to start school. I can't really say much more. We were going to get a little presentation up, but Kabir's also going to say a few words. Yeah. I don't know. On email? Yeah. So we'll get it up soon. The school, I'm just going to reflect on how we came here, me and Radhika, actually. So we're in England, living a nice life, you know, with the collective, and we used to live in a nice little village, and we bought a little flat, and we were having a nice little life, 3 children. And yes, that's you as well, you're one of them. And I was getting real troubles with my boss, and I was thinking, what's going on here? You know, I was in a really good situation, a good job, you know, house, children, wife, everything. And then suddenly things start going all haywire, and I'm thinking, what's going on? So I'm like, right, that's it, stuff this place. I'm going to apply for a new job, and it was in Australia. And I applied for that job, and then suddenly I got the job, and then it's all hits me, right? I've got to go to Australia. I'm like, why am I going to Australia? And I check the vibrations. Is it, you know, like family? Is it this? You know, should we be there? Da, da, da. I checked, should we start a school? And the vibrations were so cool. And then within 3 months, we were gone. We still had the house there. We didn't even sell it. It was still there. We were trying to sell it. But we just went. And we moved here, and we started talking to all the parents here about starting a school. And there's a lot of positive attention. People really wanted to start the school. And so we started off with, first of all, the mums are just incredible. All the mums really did it. The mums started up a Monday school, basically. And they employed like a teacher, and, well, not employed, but, you know, a bit of Dakshina. And the children started really blossoming and flourishing. And we noticed that they were really changing. So we were still like, yeah, we've got to start a school, but how are we ever going to start a school, you know? It's such a big project. It's such a big thing to sort of like contemplate. So then Andre, actually, I think Andre and Amy started like a 2-week school. So just for 2 weeks, all the children went. And these children were just like, they were like angels afterwards. They were literally like angels. Their attention was really pure. They were just like these really divine little souls that we knew we had, right? We knew we had these little divine souls in our house, but sometimes they can be terrors, right? And this school really brought them back to their nature. And I suddenly realized that actually it's the issue with the culture of the country, it's the culture of the world, it's also our conditionings. And so these children were just soaking it up, and yes, they did choose that job, but also I feel we've got like a really big responsibility as parents to bring, and as a collective, and as grandparents and as uncles and aunties, to really look after and nurture these children, because like we're just seeing, like that culture is just it gets lost within the culture of these Western countries, and even in India it's getting lost, and we need to really preserve it, and we need to really nurture these little angels. They're actually angels. Like I can't say anything more. They're really pure little beings, and if I talk from my past, I was near enough born in Sahaja, and my parents actually chose not to send me to a Dharamshala. And whenever I see kids go to Dharamshala, I'm so jealous because they have such a bond and such a beauty about them that they're actually their pure nature. They're still their pure nature. Like, I'm always jealous of Radhika. Right? I'll work on Radhika for like 2 minutes and she's clear. And I'm like, what is going on? You know, like, I'll work for like half an hour at night, like really tough work, you know. And it's because I was lying on the grass today, actually, and I was thinking, what is up? What is up? You know, why does it take me so long? And it feels as though the issues of the culture have been weaved into my being a little bit. And to weave them out is really hard. That's the really hard bit. And if it doesn't get weaved into your being, then you stay pure and then nothing influences you. But up to the age of, you know, when you're a child, you're influenced by everything around you. And this is what we need to protect these children from. We need to pull them away from this crazy world, basically. We need to look after them because they're our little darlings. They're the collective's little darlings. You know, we look on the stage and we just love them so much and we just need to care for them. And that's why we really want to start a school. And that's why we really want to start a school. But there's also the issues of the culture, you know. The culture is just going to the pits. You know, we really need to look after them and try and pull them out of this crazy, crazy world. So hopefully I've covered this slide. Ananya, right? And Ananya and Alia drew this. I don't know if you want to say something. Ananya, do you want to say something? No, she gets too shy. So this year, so Ananya's in year 1, so she was just starting, you know, she was in kindy. And we said, you know, time for year 1, starting, you know, getting bags packed and everything. She was like, I don't want to go. I want to go to a Sahaja Yogi school. And she's constantly asking me, Daddy, when have you started this Sahaja Yogi school? I want to go to my Sahaja Yogi school. And I think it's the same case for all these children. Their heart is just pouring out for this school, and they're really desiring it, and it's coming out within us. But it's really their little desires that they want to be educated in Sahaja Yoga, and they want to be pulled out of this crazy world. So I think it's really beautiful. They've even got all the names on there. And Somya Didi is there as well. I don't know if Kabir wants to say anything about the culture of what we're trying to pull them out of, your experiences. No? Come on, Kabir.
Well, I don't think I need to say anything, add anything. Just to say I was just really here for moral support. But as someone who was not as involved in this whole process, I was sort of privy to a lot of the chatter about the school, and I thought, okay, yeah, look, that's a good idea. But like so many things in Sahaja Yoga, there's a lot of talk, and then let's see what happens. But then every time I'd see Dan, he'd say, look, this is happening, and that's happening, and this obstacle came up, and this obstacle was bowled over. And at every point in this process, whenever there's been some new thing that needed to happen, it happened. And when the divine clears the way like that, there isn't a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of thinking to be had. It seems to be gathering a momentum of its own. And so with each passing month, I was surprised at how far it had progressed. And then I thought, well, this is really happening, you know? And from that seed of pure desire, as Dan has rightly pointed out, a culture that I think has reached its apogee, its low point. We really do have to, we have no other choice but to bring our children out of the culture that exists. And when COVID hit, and many of us then couldn't send our kids to Dharamshala or anywhere else, that meant a year, 2 years of their young lives. And if we could, if they can have 2 years that are easily missed, where they could be in a Sahaja school, it really made us think we really need to have this for future generations. And we have a number of Sahaja schools around the world, and we start to feel that it's time that we had one here in the land of Sri Ganesha, the very symbol of innocence. And I think if we can do this, do it well, and do it with Shumanaji's blessings, it will have an effect all over the world. Yeah. So that's all the emotional stuff. There were some other sides about how much has actually been done. I'm not sure if they can put that up in terms of how far they've progressed. So I think, yeah, some other uncles are going to talk about that. So we could just move on to the, yeah, that's the one. This is just a little bit of history. Uncle is going to talk about it because I know that Uncle was involved in a lot of talks with Shumanaji herself about schools in Australia. And the impression I got from Dan was that he still feels that responsibility very deeply, and that project that Shumanaji gave him has yet to be fulfilled. And he is now here to talk about that.
Thank you, Kabir. Jai Shumanaji. As Kabir's just indicated, I feel very strongly that we need this school, and it's something that I've been desiring for a very long time to come into existence. Thank you. But it has a history, and Australia plays a very important part in this history in terms of a school in Sahaja. So it goes back to 1982. There was a school started here in Burwood, in the garage, and Sarah Frankham, Joyanne Tollis were the teachers, and they started with four students. And they commenced that school and took it along the path for a reasonable distance. Shumanaji came, and she was very happy with that a school was started, but she decided she would prefer it to be in Melbourne. So she asked that the school be moved to Melbourne, to the Q Ashram. And so it was shifted there. It became, through a lot of effort of Ray Tollis, Joyanne Tollis and Sarah Frankham, they achieved registration for the school. So the school became a legally recognised primary school. It functioned in what was called the sports room at Q Ashram, which was a detached building. For those who aren't aware, Q Ashram occupied quite large grounds, and it was a very mansion-like building with very large grounds with tennis courts and sports areas. And these rooms were set up originally to be associated with the sports areas. So as a consequence, they had facilities in there, bathroom facilities and so forth, and 2 rooms. And these rooms became the classrooms for the students. So, and they were living, of course, in the ashram. So that developed over a period of time, and the school grew. Sarah initially had to leave because she'd become pregnant and couldn't continue on, and then Joyanne also left, and Paul Henryon and his wife came across from Western Australia and took up the teaching roles in that school. So the school was working very well, and Sarah tells a lovely story of when the school inspector would come to the school to see how everything was. He was fed such delicious cakes and nice cups of tea and everything, and he loved it, and he thought the school was great. So it had a very positive sanction from the system, and it was working well. However, there was pardon me, a desire from the leadership at the time, the national leadership, to move the school back to Sydney. And so that was put in place, and the school was closed in Melbourne and moved to Sydney. When Srimataji found out, she wasn't very happy. She hadn't been consulted about this, and we can only speculate what may have been the outcome. But Srimataji expressed her displeasure that the national leader and his wife had taken it upon themselves to make this decision and move the school. So that school is unique in Sahaja Yoga because it was the first Sahaja school, recognised school, and a fully legal operating school. So it was a special achievement for Australia, and a great disappointment all round that unfortunately it ceased to exist. I came to Sahaja Yoga while the school was still operating and while Q Ashram was still operating. So I had a personal insight into how all this was working and the dynamic that it created in Q Ashram. And I was deeply impressed with everything that I experienced there. However, unfortunately, there were these undercurrents of change which brought the school to a demise, and ultimately the Q Ashram to a demise as well. And so for a long time, this has just been in my desire to see something work out. The opportunity came up with discussions with the New South Wales parents, Sydney parents, who were talking about the possibility of starting something for our children. And so the initial trial was conducted here in Sydney for a 2-week period and was considered a success. And the proposition of where it was, or the notion, or the decision of where it was going to be was the next thing. We discussed Hiawatha in Victoria as a potential location for the school, and which on many levels ticks every box. It, on the surface, should be the perfect location for the school. The steps were taken to begin the process of seeking registration for the school in Victoria. And so the process was begun, and I was a bit disappointed to say I wasn't feeling good vibrations with it. And so I was a bit puzzled, but decided we'd just press on. And but I wasn't fully comfortable with the way it was, not so much the way it was proceeding, but just there was something not feeling right about it. And then the fires came through here, and we all know the outcome of that. As a consequence, following the fires, this property next door that was decimated came up for sale, and a suggestion came up that Sahaja Yoga buy that block of land, and we put the school there. And I thought, well, that felt better, but I wasn't fully convinced that was the best choice, but it felt better, and so we discussed it, and then because of the fact that this didn't flow smoothly, this development, it was suggested that maybe the school should be put here on the Balmoral property. I checked the vibrations on this and I thought, well, this is where it has to be. And the same question was asked here in Sydney with the same outcome. So I felt this was the right thing to do, and we have now moved on towards achieving that goal. So the parents group has been evolved to a certain extent into a working group, which has now moved to a more defined structure as the legal entity that's required to create a school, to register a school, is set up. So that legal entity is going through the process of being finalised at the moment. So Life Eternal Education Limited has been created as the legal entity for this school. A board has been created with a member from each state. And you're going to talk about that? So at this point, I'll pass back to Daniel and he'll continue with the story of how this has unfolded. Thank you.
So just an update of where we're at now. This project has totally taken its own course. I've had a few comments that sometimes maybe we haven't been so clear and open with the project, but we've tried to be as open as possible, but it's just ran so quickly that this is the first chance we've had to actually explain it to the collective what has actually happened in that time. And it seems like a lot has happened, and it's just in the first time since we said, oh, I think we should start a school, and now we're talking to you again, and now this is what's happened. So this is how quickly the project is actually running. And so hopefully we're trying to be really open with you guys, and we want as much feedback as you can give us. But we've decided on I didn't decide on the board. I was asked to be on the board, and they've selected someone from each state, and they checked it all on vibrations, and it was done in a really Sahaja way. And I tell you what, these people, I feel just completely not capable, because these people are so capable in their roles that they're just perfect, absolutely perfect. I've never been in a Sahaja Yoga group like a entity like this that have been so dynamic, so forceful. They just push it through. There's been no barriers, no issues, no nothing. So I've never experienced that in my life. Sometimes with some Yuva Shakti groups you can get that, but it's just like organizing little simple things. But this is just it's just like powering ahead. And there's a little story that I explained from one of the guys that set up the Davy School. Tom Locke said to me, he said, him and his wife actually had the concept of the Davy School, and he said to me, look, if I slow down, someone will take my place. That's how quick it went, and this feels like that. It feels like if I don't keep going, I'm just going to fall behind, and it's a bit like that. So at the moment we've got our policies in place. So this is a massive, massive thing. We've got our policies in place. We employed a company to actually bring on board, and they're doing our policies. We've had the land assessed here as well. So we've had it assessed for fire and water and drainage. And that in itself has posed some issues, but we're trying to get around that with buildings and DA approval and things like that. I'm trying to whiz through a little bit here because I know we're waiting for the next performances. But this is our mission and motto and logo. So we came up with a mission as a board, and the board's mission is to ensure the establishment and the continuity of an ethical and spiritual environment in the school, and lay out the guidance to fulfill our Divine Mother's vision to nurture discipline, love and respect in the Sahaja Yoga children, and to protect their innocence. We basically want to just fulfill Mother's vision. Shmachi had a vision for all our children. Let's fulfill it. Let's not stifle what they can actually do. They're all amazing little children. They've got these lives to live. Let's let them live it to the full. So that we tried to put that in a few sentences. We've also got a very long motto, if you want to see that one. I'm not going to let you read that. So we can skip that one. You can read that on our website. So Uncle Brett's wife has kindly offered to do our website. Yeah, our motto is Satchitananda, and that links also in with Dharamshala. So as the school wants to be like a feeder school for Dharamshala, we want people to go through the Sydney, preschool, then come into the school here, and then go on to Dharamshala. But we know that some parents, it's not possible. Sometimes their partner's not in Sahaja Yoga, or there might be issues around them not going to Dharamshala, and so that's why this school should be a feeder school for Dharamshala, but it will be a junior school. Yeah. Hopefully we'll start off with 30 children. We've had pledges from about 32, I think. Is it 32 children? 32 children. And so hopefully we'll expand that. We've had a lot of interest from international students, and so we've got to try and open up that avenue as well, and that's a load more policies. So let's see if we can get that done. But we're going to try and develop this for about 30 children to start with, and then try and expand it to 50, to maybe 100, and then Uncle Chris.
Thank you. This is where I come in. So how do we do this? Just some background. So as Colin said, the parents group approached us about starting a school, and we're also asked in Sydney about buying next door. And the reason we're asked is the parents said if we're going to buy the land next door, we want it to be a Sahaja property, so the trust should buy it, and the trust should operate the school, so it's a Sahaja entity. So a few of us went to Burwood, and at the same time that Colin was checking, we asked Shumanaji the first question, Shumanaji, is it your will that an Australian primary school should start in Australia? Blasting cool. Then we said, Shumanaji, is it your will that we buy the land next door and start the school there? Not so cool. So we said, oh, Shumanaji wants a school, but she doesn't want it next door. So then we asked Shumanaji, do you want the school to be here at Balmoral? Blasting cool. So we had our answer. So the great thing about this project is it brings together all the different aspects of Sahaja Yoga, the parents who want the school, the Sahaja leadership who want the school, and the trust who want the school. So all the different aspects of how Sahaja Yoga works have come together in a unified vision. And a great American politician once said that some people look at things that haven't come to pass and say, why not? Visionaries dream a vision and then say, why? And this is what we want to do. So on the screen is some of the mechanics about how we'll do this. So the number one thing we have to do is we have to change the zoning here. We have to, because of the catastrophic bushfire that came through here, we have to prove to the council and the planning authorities that if we build a school here, it's safe, and that we do so, we don't put our children at risk. So from the trust perspective, we will make an application that says, yes, we can build a school in the field behind here. We create a buffer zone around the school so it's protected from the bushfires. We put a plan in place about treating the water. We put a plan in place about protecting the nature. So basically we say, yes, we have the pathway to establish a school here. And that's basically what the trust will do, working with the council and the school board. Thank you.
Is that everything?
That's on there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just be very quick talking about the building. There's a few criteria for the location of the building, and it's all driven by a fire report based on our history here with the fire. So the fire reports become really crucial for any development in this area and actually around Australia. If you look at the right-hand side, you see the blue spot. That's roughly location of the school we are thinking of, because it has a big paddock around, and if in the case of fire there wouldn't be any flames coming there, so it's probably the most safest place, and that's what our fire consultant is coming with. It has to be built with all the fire regulation in place. The school also will have to be separated from the main property, so we think it probably will be pushed slightly to the back from the blue spot, and we'll have fence and slightly separated, I guess. So the school will consist of a few buildings that will require classes. So we think to put 2 classes, and we're thinking to start with demountables. As you may be aware of, most of the schools in Australia have this steel fabricated demountable classes. They're quite cost effective to put on. And we're still in the process of design and costing the boarding facility. That will be a question for later on. There's a few options. Potentially, we could buy the demountable boarding facility, or we could build our own. So that's still coming. This slide is showing how we can use the land. So the square on the left, that's where we can develop. Square to the right, that's where we preserve. As it's a bushland, it's a secondary water catchment area. Here's a plan. So we have a few projects which is coming along the school, and when we're going to apply for DA, we're going to apply for both of them. So the bottom part showing the existing hall, and it's showing the potential school location. Then you can see there's a car park, and above it, it's a white square. And that's where we're thinking about the village, community housing village. There's quite a few yogis, I mean, you're well aware of it, it's been presented many times, expressed the interest to have a village on a property where they can rent for, I think Uncle Chris did a presentation before, it's like 90 years lease houses. So we put in the DA with all of this in mind. Yeah, that's pretty much where we are. Who's next?
Okay, there's 2 more slides. We'll just rush. I know everyone's eager to see the dancing. We'll get there. But I have the lovely Kanak here to come and talk a little bit about how the school will be part of the global Sahaja school system. So I'll just hand over to Kanak. She's also one of the board members.
Thank you, Kabir. I don't have much to add apart from adding a female voice to the presentation. I think when we had Vatsal, all we were looking at, even before he was born, that he will go to ISPS. So all we had to look at is just to, get them to a school so they can just to study up till class 2. So that was the aim, and then he went to class 3 at ISPS, and he had a lovely time. And you can just see that all children are different. Some are very independent at a very young age, and some take some time. So those initial years, even those class 1, class 2, I think are very important. And that's that's the age where Shrimati said that their foundation has to be strong in Sahaja Yoga. And I think that's how everybody feels, that if we can create that environment for them, where we can make those initial years, where we can protect their innocence and establish that Sri Ganesha principle. So I also had this first thought in my mind that are we opening a school in competition to ISPS? And apparently it's not like that. It's more like establishing a sister school for ISPS. And board also reached out to Sadhna Didi, and she was also very happy with the project, and she sent us a very beautiful email blessing the school. So board is actively looking at liaising with all the other international Sahaja schools. And as Dan said, the things are happening quite fast that we can't keep up. So we haven't been able to reach out to them yet, but that's the plan. So we're actively looking at, and we have some contacts from some of the schools who actually want to set up a system where all the Sahaja school work together, set up a system where we all they can follow their country's law for school education, but Sahaja education, if that can be the same in all the schools. So we are trying to contact ISPS Cabela School, Davy School and Borotin, they're also interested in setting up a group with Australian school, and so that we can all work together. So it's not in a competition with any of the Sahaja school, just a sister or a feeder school to ISPS. Thank you.
Oh, okay, last one. It's going to be very quick, right?
Yep.
30 seconds.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you a story about the time. All right, so just to finish with the numbers and the timeline. So the initial phase, which we're in now of planning and school setup, we're looking at around $65,000 to get us through to submitting our planning proposal. And beyond that, there's a second phase planning proposal and a DA or development application process, which is around the $85,000 mark. And we hopefully have DA approval by Feb 2022 with a building cost estimate at the moment of 1.155 million, building completion around November 22 and term 1 commencing 2023. That build cost is at the low end of the spectrum. So if we used all demountables, we might get away with that, but the actual number will be clearer within the next probably month, I'd say. Andre's working on some proper estimating with Suhas in Queensland, who is an estimator by trade. So we'll have some pretty good numbers to work from. So how do we pay for all this? So initially we went around to all the state councils and requested a donation, which they all kindly, and speaking of obstacles that just, there haven't really been any obstacles. Everything just keeps moving forward with this. So within a week, they all contributed what was requested. So that was all the states, and we raised $15,000 to get us started. So we've just about used that. So the next phase will be parent application fees. So we're going to start with a minimum requirement of 30 children. So we're going to request a $500 application fee per child. So the idea being that if we're going to go to the collective for over $1 million in donations, that we obviously need them to feel confident that the school will go ahead and that the parents are well and truly behind it, and there'll be children once those buildings have been built. So we'll go to the parents, and if that gets through to the 30 children minimum, we'll then, which we reach with the expressions of interest we did, by the way, recently. So we haven't actually been in communication with any of those parents, so I just asked you to give a little apology to them because we've been so focused on other things, but we'll certainly form a little parents group soon, and we'll have a little community we'll get going. So if we end up with the 1.25 million we need, then we'd go to the collective to see if we can get pledges, so we won't be asking for money initially. If we get pledges to that amount, we'll ask them to then transfer 10% of that, so that'll be 125,000 in that case, which will get us through to DA approval. So we're now allowed to build it, at which point we then go back to the parents for a $2,000 deposit towards their first year of fees. Again, just to give the collective confidence that everything's still, going to schedule, and then we'd ask them to transfer the remaining 90% that was pledged. Now, those may feel like big numbers, but if you look at the number of adults in the Sahaja collective here, it actually breaks down to a manageable number, and it's not unprecedented. So I know when they built Burwood back in the 80s, or bought Burwood, not necessarily built it, they all the yogis donated $3,000, and in today's money that was $13,000 per person. And more recently we tried to purchase number 8 Clarence Street, and I was closely involved with that project, and it was on the market for 3.1 million, so we didn't get there, but we got pledges of 1.2 million at that point, and we had some families pledging $100,000, actually multiple families. So the generosity was quite remarkable and humbling to witness. Beyond that, then the school fees are set at $10,000 per annum at the moment per our operating budget. So we've done a business case study. If anybody really wants to see the detail, it's here. You can have a look at it with me. So we're starting at $10,000 with 30 students, which gives us a operating surplus. But for every additional 5 students who enrol. That will reduce the annual fees by $500 per annum because just the numbers work out a lot better in that sense. So that includes 7 staff fully paid. So there's no cutting corners with our budgets. So all the staff will get paid. If they choose to donate their money, they're more than welcome. If they want to donate their wages, but there'd be no pressure on that. There'd be no expectation around that. So it's all fully, I'm an accountant by trade, so it's all the numbers have been crunched and it all adds up. So the other really good aspect of the financials is something that we haven't been able to achieve with LETA because it's just not possible, but with schools you can create a school building fund. So all this will be tax deductible. So anyone who would also like to get the benefit of a tax deduction, you'll finally get to do that when you make your donation. So I should just give a chance if there's anyone with burning questions. You're probably just all hanging out to see the performances, but if anyone would like to ask anything, now would be a good time. There's a hand. Yeah, we can structure it how we choose, so we'd probably do that in association with the parents, but I would say so. It would probably make sense to give them a couple of weeks back at home during the year, but there's no decisions made on that, so the board will then work with the parents, and we'll need to appoint a principal pretty soon, so that principal will then work with the parents to decide the best approach. So we'll figure that one out. Yeah, there's a hand up there. Yeah. Yeah, so the demountables, we went through Auntie Debbie Miller, who's a primary school teacher in Queensland. She works out of demountables and with air conditioning, which we would have, and she loves them. So she's gone up as someone who works with them day to day, who said they're perfectly good. Yeah.
Can I just request maybe we save the questions to direct to the board direct members for afterwards? Otherwise, this will keep running on and on. Let's move on to the entertainment program. Okay. So, I looked very mean over there. I do sincerely appreciate all the leadership. So thank you everyone who made the presentation. All right, so let's get on to this dance performance.